Political and diplomatic relations between the United States and the People's Republic of China have not been at their best in recent years. And so far in 2020, multiple events have brought this kind of confrontation to the field of economy and big finance. You don't have to look far to see news stories like this.
August 7th, 2020, Trump takes aim at Tencent's WeChat in escalation of anti-China campaign. US companies given 45 days to stop dealing with messaging app.
And not only that, in addition to freezing the activities of these two popular applications in the United States, unless their activities in the country are transferred to companies that are not under the jurisdiction of China, the raging war goes much further. The Trump administration is leading an entire campaign to tighten surveillance over Chinese companies listed in the United States. President Trump has even gone so far as to mention a possible financial disconnection if Beijing does not agree to change its rules of the game. And it's not just about the White House. On the 21st of April, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the body responsible for regulating the stock markets, issued an alert, a warning about the risks involved in investing in emerging markets, especially in China, because of the regulatory deficiencies that exist.
Emerging market investments entail significant disclosure, financial reporting, and other risks. Remedies are limited. As a result, in many emerging markets, including China, there is substantially greater risk that disclosures will be incomplete or misleading. SEC.
Then, shortly afterwards, in the same vein, the United States Senate approved the Holding Foreign Companies Accountable Act by a large bipartisan majority on 20th of May 2020. It's a law that states, in a cautious manner, that Chinese companies listed in the United States that do not comply with the requirements of the Accounting Oversight Board for US-listed companies will be expelled from US markets. Yes, that's what I said. Expelled.
If Chinese-based companies want to be listed on the stock exchange or access the US capital markets, we must make them comply with US laws. If they do not, we must remove Chinese-based companies from US stock exchanges. Marco Rubio, Republican Senator from Florida.
In other words, if things do not change, this law could ultimately lead to American stock exchanges expelling Chinese giants like Baidu, a Google-style search engine, or even Alibaba. Because, you see, the law introduced by Republican Senator John Kenneth and Democrat Chris Van Hollen requires that Chinese companies listed in the United States certify that they are not under the control of the Chinese government and comply with the supervisory standards that are customary in the country. Because the truth is that, until now, such bodies such as the SEC or the Accounting Oversight Board have not been able to access the accounting and audit work on these companies simply because the Chinese government does not allow it. Beijing considers this kind of material to be state secrets. This means that supervision and scrutiny of Chinese companies has so far been much weaker, even if they were listed on the United States stock exchanges. And there's even more. Agencies such as the Federal Retirement Savings Investment Board, which manages the retirement savings of government and military employees, we're talking about around $600 billion, have decided to freeze their plan to invest in Chinese stocks.
May 13th, 2020, Federal Retirement Fund halts planned China investment under pressure, NY Times.
However, let's not fool ourselves in spite of everything. It is clear that the mammoth Chinese market is a tasty and appealing carrot, not only for the big multinationals, but also for investors all over the world. China carries increasing weight in the world economy. That is why, in this new installment of the series we are doing in collaboration with Value School, we are asking the following questions. How much influence does the Asian giant really have in the world of finance? Why are US regulators alerting us to the risks of investing in Chinese companies? How could those risks affect world finance? What are these risks? Friends, in this video we want to answer all these questions, and we are also going to give you many details about some of the latest cases of extensive fraud committed by Chinese companies, some of which, by the way, are even listed in the United States stock exchanges. These are fraud cases consisting of a systematic falsification of company accounts to build up an image that had nothing to do with reality. Have you heard, for example, of Luckin Coffee, the great Chinese company that was to rival Starbucks? Well, let's get into it.
Chinese, and more Chinese.
Everybody wants a piece of China. We're talking about a huge market, almost 1.4 billion consumers, a middle class of over 600 million people, and a purchasing power that just grows and grows and grows. China is a huge opportunity to make billions in profits. Now, the question we can ask ourselves is, from the point of view of financial economics, how exactly are things going? Well, the truth is that despite all the drums of war that we've been hearing lately, things aren't going badly at all. In 2019, Chinese regulators began to relax many of the restrictions that prevented foreign players from participating in the financial industry. And since then, well, let's just say that the sector has been a veritable party, a non-stop party. Check it out. Between 2019 and 2020, we have seen PayPal acquire 70% of the Chinese company GoPay, thus becoming the first foreign company to provide online payment services in China. We have seen Goldman Sachs take a majority stake in the securities firm with which it operated in this country. Exactly the same thing Morgan Stanley did. Then, JP Morgan has started to operate a futures company with 100% foreign capital, and American Express has received approval to become the first foreign credit card company to launch land-based operations in China. Visa and MasterCard are now following in the same path. Even the rating agencies S&P and Fitch have been approved to perform credit rating services in the country. And dear friends of VisualPolitik, these are just a few examples. Despite the constant rumblings of imminent war, China's financial integration has accelerated over the past 2 years. And if we think about it for a moment, it's nothing unusual. China's potential market is so huge that international companies could make billions in profits by taking even a small share of it. But it is not just the financial services industry. The truth is that capital flows, especially those known as portfolio investment, that is, financial investment flows that do not involve taking control of a company, such as minority shareholdings or the purchase of debt securities, are growing substantially year by year. As you can see from this graph, by the end of Q1 2020, foreign investor ownership of Chinese stocks and bonds exceeded 4 trillion yuan, about $600 billion. A number that is expected to grow very strongly over the next few years as large companies that produce the best-known indices, such as MSCI, are gradually increasing the weight of Chinese-listed companies in their indices. Take a look.
MSCI increases weighting of China A shares in indexes to 20%.
Which, all things considered, makes a lot of sense, because the Chinese capital market is getting bigger. For example, take a look at this other graph. As you can see, the Chinese stock exchanges are already the second largest in the world in terms of the market value of their listed companies. And yes, okay, you got me. It's true. Although this chart, prepared by asset manager AllianceBernstein, includes the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, the truth is that if we exclude that data, the chart wouldn't change much. And obviously that means that more and more international investors are going to set their sights on the Asian giant's capital market. After all, it is precisely here that many business opportunities are emerging, as well as many of the new unicorns. And that's not the end of it. Then we also have to take into account that there are almost 230 Chinese companies listed on the Nasdaq and the New York Stock Exchange. We're talking about companies like Alibaba, Neo, or Baidu, known as the Chinese versions of Amazon, Tesla, and Google retrospectively. In other words, the Asian giant is not only omnipresent in industrial and commercial markets, but is also increasingly present in the financial world. And it doesn't really seem like that's something that can be reversed. But so what? Why so many warnings and misgivings? Why has the US Senate given the green lights to a bill that could end up driving many Chinese companies out of US stock exchanges? Why so many SEC warnings about the risk of investing in the Chinese capital market? Well, let's take a closer look.
A rampage announced.
One thing is clear. Events have shown us very clearly that both the corporate governance and the legal system in China are weak in preventing and dealing with all kinds of corporate fraud. And that has meant that fraud and accounting manipulation scandals in Chinese companies are not something strange. The latest big scandal occurred in the company known as the Chinese Starbucks. Have you heard of Luckin Coffee? Well, pay attention because the story is not to be missed. Luckin Coffee was launched in 2017 with one objective: to popularize coffee consumption in a country where this product is still very unpopular. To give you an idea, in 2018, the annual per capita consumption of coffee in China was only 6 cups, compared to more than 200 in Taiwan and almost 400 in the United States. However, Luckin had a plan: to offer cheaper coffee through stores in busy places. To achieve this, they developed an application to order and pay for orders, which would allow the company to reduce labor costs on the one hand, and on the other, to continually send customers new offers, gifts, and discounts so that they would come back again and again and again. And take note, because just 1 year after its inception, this company received a significant capital injection from Joy Capital, the largest venture capital fund in China, and also from Singapore's sovereign wealth fund. The operation valued this startup at $1 billion. With the new capital, Luckin began to grow at full speed. In just 2 years, it opened more than 4,500 stores throughout China. On May 17, 2019, it's made its debut on the Nasdaq. Come on, this company seemed to have it all. It was growing at full speed, rivaling Starbucks in the Chinese market, and it had an app. And you know what that means. Even though it was just a company that sold coffee, it suddenly became a fully fledged technology company. And so this is how its stock market debut became a huge success. After the opening bell was rung, Luckin's shares jumped almost 50% from the initial offer price. And in the following 8 months, the share price practically multiplied by 3. Friends, expectations for this company were sky high.
November 13th, 2019. Luckin's sales top forecast as it chases Starbucks in China. December 2nd, 2019. China's Luckin Coffee matching Starbucks at its own game. Luckin's digital focus is shining, according to one analyst. That poses a particular threat to Starbucks' China business. Jan 17th, 2020. This coffee upstart could be a stronger growth stock than Starbucks in the near term, says Gina Sanchez, founder and CEO of investment consulting firm Chantico Global.
However, at the end of January 2020, the scandal broke. Muddy Waters Research, a private investment firm specializing in short sales, published an 89-page report apparently showing how this company, Luckin Coffee, was systematically misrepresenting its financial statements, especially its turnover. The report stated, for example, that the so-called Chinese Starbucks was inflating the number of products sold by 60 to 88% each quarter. The company initially denied it, but finally on April 2nd had to admit that all the accusations were true. Of course, as you can imagine, the stock price automatically plummeted between February and the end of June. When the Nasdaq expelled this company from their market, its shares lost 95% of their value.
They were aggressive and expanded very quickly. Either they got people to drink coffee and they would make a lot of money, or it wouldn't work. Win big or fail fast. A very reasonable strategy. However, when I visited their stores, they were empty. There were simply no customers, while Starbucks across the street were full. Jeffrey Towson, professor of the MBA program at Peking University.
And remember that the Luckin Coffee case was no exception. Over the last few years, scandals involving Chinese companies have been frequent. As of 2020, 2 other Chinese companies listed in the United States, the online training company Tal Education Group and the streaming video platform iQIYI, have been linked to or admitted to alleged fraud. And in large part, this is what explains both the SEC warnings and the new legislation passed by the Senate. So the question we can now ask ourselves is, what now? What consequences can we expect? Okay, let's take a look.
Hong Kong style.
New legislation passed by the United States Senate and the growing hostility of the Trump administration have set off alarm bells in many Chinese companies. The most likely scenario is that eventually China will give in on this issue, and it will strengthen its control over corporate governance and allow US regulators access to the accounting and audit working documents of Chinese companies. But of course, we're talking about a probable scenario, not a certain one. Relations between Washington DC and Beijing are becoming increasingly tense. So, the affected companies are putting contingency plans in place that basically involve preparing for a listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. This is a path that has already been taken by companies such as Alibaba, JD.com, and the video game company NetEase, among others. Then, for its part, China's largest semiconductor company, the Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, even left the New York Stock Exchange and is now listed only in Hong Kong. In total, according to the investment bank UBS, at least 42 companies listed in the United States now have plans to start trading in Hong Kong as a preventative measure. And that's not all. In the face of so much uncertainty, it seems that Chinese companies that want to go public are thinking very hard about whether to use American markets at all. The most famous case is undoubtedly that one of the Ant Group, the most valuable unicorn in the world. Friends, Ant Group is a financial technology company associated with Alibaba, which is also one of its largest largest shareholders, and which, among other assets, controls Alipay, the dominant mobile payment platform in China, with more than 500 million users. To give you an idea of what we are talking about, according to existing estimates, it could go public with a valuation of approximately $200 billion. And friends, we're talking about a giant that, from what we can gather, has decided to discard the United States for now and has opted to go forward with listings only on Shanghai and Hong Kong stock exchanges. Well, that's the way it seems, although China's financial ties with the rest of the world are steadily growing. Everything points to the fact that, in the near future, as far as Chinese companies are concerned, we will see Hong Kong playing a greater role than that of American stock exchanges. Yes, it's the financial center of Hong Kong that may benefit most from this new clash between China and the United States. In fact, in an upcoming video here on VisualPolitik, we will tell you how important Hong Kong remains for China. And for the time being, until things change, you have to be aware of the additional risks that can come with investing in Chinese companies. In fact, this is one of the reasons why these companies are often quoted, for example, at lower PER levels than their Western counterparts. In short, with this video, we wanted to bring you closer to the growing role that China has in world finance and the risks that this poses. Risks that we can never lose sight of if we're talking about investment. But the question is, as an investor, what do you think of Chinese companies? Do you consider them? Do you think they are worth the risk or not? Leave your answers in the comments. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe for brand new videos. Don't forget to check out our friends at the Reconsider Media podcast. They provided the vocals in this episode that weren't mine. Also, this channel was possible because of Patreon and our patrons on that platform. Please consider joining them and supporting our mission of providing independent political coverage. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.
And if you want to learn more about politics and hear even more of my lovely voice, you can join us at Reconsider Media. We have a podcast at reconsidermedia.com/podcast. See you there.